Kia ora te whānau, tēnā koutou katoa, nō mai haere mai or nō mai hoki mai. Welcome to or welcome back to the What a Lawyer podcast. This is a show where we interview accomplished lawyers across Aotearoa looking to share their skills, stories and legislative insights for our curious minds or emerging lawyers looking to learn from those that have been there and done that. I'm your host, Sam Lindsay, an agency director and search partner at Chisholm Clark, and I privately help lawyers navigate their careers both nationally and internationally. And through this podcast, bring you stories and conversations that you can learn from and apply today. Jeremy Johnson is one of New Zealand's leading barristers, with expertise in private wealth, relationship property, equity and trusts, arbitration and commercial law. He acts in cases across New Zealand and the Asia-Pacific, regularly appearing as lead counsel in courts and arbitral tribunals. Known for his discretion and skill, Jeremy is highly regarded for his work with high-profile individuals and families, particularly in cross-border private wealth matters. Jeremy has received numerous accolades, including rankings in the Legal 500 Asia-Pacific in 2019 and 2024, and Chambers Asia-Pacific in 2022 to 2025, where he is ranked Band 1 for 2025. He's based at Bankside Chambers in Auckland and Singapore and is registered with the Singapore International Commercial Court. He serves on the advisory board of the International Trust Arbitration Organisation and is a member of the Society of Trust and Estate Practitioners, holding an advanced certificate in trust disputes in which he is placed first globally. A fellow of the Arbitrators and Mediators Institute of New Zealand and the International Academy of Family Lawyers, Jeremy also contributes to the community as Chancellor of the Diocese of Waiapu and Chair of Christ College. He was also awarded the King's Service Medal in 2025 for his community service. What a lawyer, it's Jeremy Johnson.
Hi Sam, how are you this afternoon? Hopefully you can tell it's a quite nice wintry but sunny day here in Auckland.
Yes, lovely. No, we've got the classic Christchurch crisp, fresh morning. A bit of sunshine in the afternoon, but it's chilly, but it's nice. That's for sure.
Yeah. We're not much different today, so I thought I'd get out a old Christchurch waistcoat.
Of course, yes.
Just because it was cold enough.
Well, again, Jeremy, thank you so much for joining us. Obviously, you're a busy man, so we appreciate your time. And we're very, very lucky today to be able to learn from your experience in the law, both as a lawyer and as a person as well. So with this category of podcasts that we produce in the career story, we like to break down someone's career into manageable, bite-sized pieces. We're going to get through landing your first role, get through promotions and performance, travel, overseas experience, your current work, and then obviously what's going to happen in your future. Okay, so I'll break each one down, give you the talking point, and then we'll just get through it.
Sounds great.
I've got our standard Ask Me Anything questions later on, and I've also got our quick fires to finish off the episode, okay? But to start with, finishing law school, coming out the other side and going into practice for the first time. Some people have a misconception around what that actually is versus what it's, sounded like or what it's portrayed in the movies or, whatever. What was your experience like coming out of law school and getting your first job?
Look, it was fine. I got one right. Good luck. So I applied for summer clerking, and then because I did a double degree, at the end of my third year, I summer clerked for Chapman Tripp in Wellington, and I did rotations through a couple of the property team was second, and the first one was it's like Com 2 or Com 3. They had sort of 3 or 4 commercial teams at that point, and they were partially subject specific, but weren't hugely. And I had a really great time there. It was fun, as you'd expect, great group of people. You got to see kind of a lot of stuff. And then the following summer, I thought, I was quite committed to staying in Christchurch for that summer, and the expectation that I'd move at the end of university. I applied to a few Christchurch firms to summer clerk for them, not intending to really do anything with it. And I ended up at Wynne Williams in Christchurch, and I was in the litigation team, was there for the entire summer. I think I'd always known if I did law, it was going to be litigation focused rather than transactional. My mind doesn't work in the way some transactional lawyers do. And much of my skill set's much more suited to the litigation end of things.
Was there anything that surprised you, like when you started?
Anything that surprised me around the work itself? That would be very high. Probably a lot of hindsight bias answering that question, to be honest. There wasn't a tremendous amount that surprised me, to be honest. I think anything that surprised me, which you ultimately realise, is what a rolling maul it is. Like litigation is a rolling maul. People pretend it's a very smooth process, but it's definitely not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, nice. Let's talk about once you actually had that new role locked in at Wynne Williams, all your friends had disappeared and gone off and got judges' clerkships. What was the early role? Obviously working hands-on really closely with some great mentors. How did you progress through that with your growth, your progression, your performance, and ultimately ending up in the partnership at Wynne Williams?
Well, it was very much, and there's merits to this approach, like it was very much on the deep end type stuff, to be honest. So Jared went away shortly after I started for like a month, and I was not yet admitted and nominally in charge of his practice with some light supervision from other partners.
Yeah, it's a single swim situation, if I've ever seen one.
Yeah, correct. So you just work through things and stuff, and this was
right. Yeah.
Yeah. You got to it's like 2008. People didn't really have emails on their phones or anything like that.
No, it was around that sort of intermediate level. You went overseas. You did a little bit more travel or some more education. What was that like?
Look, that was great. So I went to Cambridge for a year, just did my LLM. And it was great. Like if you have a vaguely academic bent, which I kind of do, although I do my best to hide it, he says half-jokingly, it's a fantastic experience. You get to stop and think a bit more about the law, particularly in a place like England. Cambridge had a great legal history course, which, legal history is the foundation actually of all that we do in the common law. So when you actually understood the history of how it developed, you did get a great understanding of the principles behind a lot of our legal rules. And that I found both endlessly fascinating and also incredibly practically useful, probably more practically useful than you think. So that aspect of it was great, like very intellectually stimulating. And then you're in a different environment, which always helps. A place like Cambridge is beautiful. You're actually just surrounded by nice surroundings the entire time. Got this friend in America who's kind of a hedge fund guy. And he said when he turned 40 that he only wanted to spend his life in the nice rooms. And I think when you go to places like Cambridge or something, good American universities, that's exactly what happens. You basically spend your life in nice rooms. And I'm a great believer of the effect of aesthetics on people's moods, particularly in the sense of the spaces in which you're in. So that was great. Lots of cultural stuff going on, close to London, different people to meet. Met some great friends from there. I'm still in touch with. I was in New York a few weeks ago and saw a great friend of mine who's Dutch, who was doing his PhD at the time. He now works at the UN. There's all that sort of stuff happening. I highly, highly recommend it. Unusually, I didn't stay. Most people in my position stayed and worked in London for a bit or somewhere else. I chose to come back because I had the offer of partnership and thought, well, when you got an offer like that,
it's pretty hard to say no to, I'd imagine.
Yeah, right. You might as well take the opportunity while it's there.
Especially while you're still in your 20s. Like that doesn't really happen that often, at least anymore. I'm not really sure.
Well, that's exactly right. And even at the firm, it kind of, I think I'm basically the last one. Shall we say, because it just doesn't happen anymore. The profession's changed. Wynne Williams was small enough at the time that it could still do that sort of stuff, but even now it has a scale where that sort of thing just probably wouldn't happen.
Yeah. So what was moving into the partnership like?
There's a big difference between being a senior associate and being a partner, and it comes back to that great, sign Harry Truman allegedly had on his desk, the buck stops here. When you're the partner, you are responsible for everything. And it may not actually be your fault in a sense, but you are responsible and you always have to take responsibility. Yeah, exactly. Like it's always your fault. And that's fine. Like it's the nature of it. It's also a way you get to earn more money. So there's trade-offs involved, but you've got to go into it with that mindset. This is a job of responsibility. Yeah. And that means from my perspective, probably meant three things. It does change how you approach your colleagues, particularly kind of the junior staff. When you're a senior associate or whatever, you can be more friendly. You basically it's kind of easy to be friends with people. When you're ultimately responsible, it changes the dynamic slightly. And I've still got great friends who worked for me. But yeah, you've just got to be very clear about where the line is. And you've got to have a real ability to shift from this is the kind of
friend to manager
friend thing, and then this is when I'm managing you.
Yes.
And those two things will not cross. So you've got to have a real discipline around that sort of stuff, I think. You start to really, you probably even more so think through the decisions you're making and whether it's the right thing to do, particularly in highly contentious situations. So, because in law, there's a lot of judgment calls to be made, and the judgment calls affect people's lives. And sometimes the nature of our profession is people intimate your judgment call will affect your professional standing. The number of basically threats you have from other lawyers about, you're going to breach this rule, you're going to do that, you're going to do X, Y, Z. And it's a fine line, right? It's very easy, I think, to simply do nothing in those situations and to say, well, I don't want to get anywhere near risking myself personally, therefore I'm going to take that call, and to default to no on things. But also that doesn't serve the client, and ultimately you're there to serve the court first, but then you serve the client. And you need to stop and think about that and really think through, if I do this, is that actually a legitimate issue there? And I think that involves two things. You've got to be willing to go and take advice from other people at those critical moments. And you've also got to be able to stop and think objectively and reasonably fearlessly and acknowledge that if you make this call, then it should work out, but maybe it won't. But all you can do is think through it as properly as you can, actually, in life, because sometimes the ball starts rolling and you just don't know where it's going to end up. So you got to take, I think, to do the job properly, you got to take that sort of attitude, to be honest. And you can't be too afraid, because people are afraid to make decisions that ultimately don't serve their clients, in my view.
Yeah.
So you've got to be quite forward on that. The other thing partnership introduces, and you have a little bit of it when you're a senior associate, is you really understand the economic pressures.
At Chisholm Clark, I spend a lot of time talking with lawyers about their careers. Sometimes they're unhappy, sometimes they're just curious, sometimes they're well and truly looking for a change. If you genuinely love your role and you have a great mixture of work type, people, balance, culture, then that's fantastic. You probably don't need us. But if you've been wondering whether this country, this firm, this role, even this area of law is the right fit for you, then that's where we can help. Chisholm Clark is a legal search firm built here in New Zealand specifically for lawyers. We take a private, thoughtful approach, getting to know you both as a person and as a professional, so that we can connect you with the right opportunities that genuinely fit, including those on the open market and off market, not just what you hear about or see on the shelf. Whether you're actively looking or just exploring, we offer a confidential, no pressure way to understand your options, from roles and salaries and insights and people and genuine career direction. Because a legal career should feel sustainable and not overwhelming, sometimes the best next step is just finding the right fit and starting up. If you're ready for a chat or just want to know what's out there, head along to chisholmclark.co.nz and reach out today for a private discussion on your terms. And now, back to the conversation.
Yeah. You're running a business at the end of the day, right?
Yeah. So you're starting to run a business. You are, particularly become an equity partner. What happens directly affects what you earn. There's a whole raft of things that go on. And also in a partnership, you're accountable to your other partners about how you run your team you're the partner. So you've got to be very mindful of that stuff. And it's a change in mindset. It doesn't mean, I'm definitely not a penny pincher. The Christmas party bills will tell you that.
I'm sure.
But you still got to be mindful. You've got to start to understand the economics of what you're doing.
Yeah, sure.
In quite a serious way, I think. And that's something where some people are instinctively better at it than others.
Yeah.
So those were probably the big changes. Basically, it's your responsibility from here on in, and it's also your economic responsibility and your economic fortunes, and they're tied to other people.
So do you mind telling us a little bit more about your current work and what you're up to on a day-to-day basis? The fact that you're flying off to Singapore 4 times a year, what does your world look like right now? And even further than that, what's in your future?
Yeah, so what's the world look like right now? chaos at the moment. I would say everything happens at once in this job. Like as I said, it's been like a couple of weeks ago. I was like, oh, this is a reasonably kind of easy week, and then suddenly everything
And then boom,
explodes, and people file new things, and they want urgent hearings, and you've got to try and juggle it all. I'll tell you a little bit about my practice to probably frame it. So I basically do kind of 3 buckets of work, and then kind of the charitable, the community-based add-on is what I call it, the community bucket. I sit on a few boards. I do stuff for the Anglican Church. There's a whole raft of legal stuff I do for the community, which I really enjoy. So that's always part of what I do. That involves quite a bit of travel for me as well, because some of it's sort of based around New Zealand.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of the work I actually do, I do basically a lot of private wealth work. So high-end trust and estate disputes, usually with significant amounts. Relationship property is part of that as well. So I do quite a bit of divorce work. Normally there's a kind of overlay as well of trusts there, companies, that sort of thing. So I do quite a lot of that. And increasingly I do stuff that has a bit of an international element to it. So where there's a kind of cross-border jurisdictional issue, or where there's assets overseas. So I'm part of this great organisation called the International Academy of Family Lawyers.
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic group of people, came out of America, very strong worldwide network, amazing Asia-Pacific network. Went to the conference in KL. Highly recommend it to people who are interested in the area. I do quite a lot of that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I do arbitration. So I appear both as counsel and sit as an arbitrator from time to time. And the work in Singapore tends to be arbitration and private wealth focused. So that's primarily where that sits. Mm-hmm. And then I also just do general commercial disputes. So shareholder disputes, that sort of thing, is part of what I do as well. Companies, directors' duties cases, general advice, that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of the work that I do. So it's a mix of, I do a lot of ADR, a lot of mediations as well. Normally I'll have a mediation a month. I think in April I have 5 weeks in a row where I have one every week. That gets quite...
hectic.
Yeah, it gets a bit tiring by the end of it. And you get a bit sort of over the thing with mediations is they're not particularly principled, are they?
No.
So occasionally you get a bit like, oh, here we go again.
Here we go,
right. And then obviously I do a lot of court work. So I've got an appeal tomorrow. I have an appeal tomorrow. I had a hearing last week. I think I'm clear next week. Then I've got a trial at the start of August. I've just had something come in, but they've got an urgent hearing at the start of August as well, which is problematic. I've got a 2-week trial set down for September. I've got a 5 to 8 day in November. I've got all sorts of interlocks and other appeals and stuff.
Yeah.
And then 2028 is looking pretty full at the moment.
Yeah.
The way the diary's working. So I do a lot of general court stuff. So people will often just instruct me to appear towards the end of the process for court. So that's kind of the nature of the practice. So what I do day to day varies: meetings, opinion work, reviewing pleadings, reviewing briefs of evidence, issuing random instructions on a file, go to a board meeting, go to court, having a mediation. Depends entirely on what's going on.
Yeah, nice. Cool. Thanks, Jeremy. We're going to move into our next section of the conversation now, called our Ask Me Anything. I've got a few questions here up my sleeve, depending on how much time we've got left. Maybe we'll get through 1 or maybe 2, maybe 3 questions, and then we'll jump into our quick fires at the end. First question for you is, you've appeared in some pretty high profile cases, as you mentioned at the very start. Is there any specific technique or strategy that you used to employ to stay calm when the pressure rises? It's
a very good question. Look, my general attitude to most things is there's no point losing sleep over anything. Broadly speaking, in litigation, you've got to remember 2 things. The particular stuff I do, nobody's going to die. Nobody's going to prison. I don't do criminal work. And all you're really doing is you're normally trying to get your client out of a situation that they got themselves into. But all you can do is provide your best advice to do that.
Yeah.
And when you frame it up that way, you realise, look, this seems important, and it is, and you want to prepare and do a good job, but otherwise relax. And the key part of that is actually the preparation. If you're well prepared, you don't usually have to worry about very much. it will be what it will be in that sense.
Okay, next one. If you were starting again as a graduate tomorrow, would you do anything differently in your first 3 years?
Yeah, possibly. Or maybe after I've finished my master's. The only thing I ponder in my head is whether I would have enjoyed like moving to Sydney, and I say that simply because of the way that the nature of the profession works there. They have a very clear demarcation between solicitors and barristers. Because of our fused profession, even barristers kind of tend to get dragged towards solicitor work a lot. Whereas really, the idea of you show up, a clerk says to you, here's the file, you've got a case in 2 weeks. I mean, it sounds ideal, frankly. And I have tremendous respect for the intellectual rigour in that jurisdiction. New South Wales is, fantastically intellectually rigorous, and is it takes an approach of applying formal rules in a way that New Zealand probably doesn't do quite so well.
Sure.
Yeah. So that's probably, in all honesty, the only thing. I mean.
Okay, next one for you. What's one skill that junior lawyers consistently underestimate but becomes incredibly valuable later in their careers?
Listening.
Isn't that funny?
Yeah. Everybody most people in our profession underestimate listening because my job is listening.
I think there's a saying around that. It's like you've been given 2 ears for a reason and only one mouth.
Exactly. And you got to listen. You got to actually listen to your client. You got to listen to the judge, and you got to listen to the other side. And that's true whether it's in court or in a mediation, because it's only by listening you figure out what the lie of the land actually is and what people want.
Yeah. There's a big risk of jumping to assumptions otherwise, isn't there?
Yeah, correct. And also listening is necessary, I think, for persuasion.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't understand where someone's coming from, how can you try and shift their view?
Yes.
Yeah.
Cool. What's something, I think you'll like this one, Jeremy. What's something about the legal profession that you hope never changes and something that you hope does?
There's so much on that first list. This is the problem.
Yes. Yeah.
What do I hope never changes about the profession? Kind of relevant for the current discourse. The human element to it. Right, like AI is a great tool.
Yeah, but it can't replace that human connection, can it?
No, and even if it could, would you want it to? At the end of the day, humans are. I believe in the autonomy of people and our ability to make our own decisions, and that's something lawyers find very hard when you look at the client in the eye and say, "I really think you should do this," and they say, "Yeah, but I'm going to do the exact opposite of what you told me to do." It's not because they're rational.
No.
And whereas the AI machine would say, do this, and they'll still be like, no, I'm going to go off and do that.
I'm going to do it, yeah.
So that, I think, is the thing I really want us to preserve on the whole. What do I wish we would get rid of? I think sometimes we spend a bit too much time trying to make the other party look like a bad person. Whereas I'm a very kind of traditional guy in the sense the law is what it is, and it applies regardless of whether the person's good or bad. There's a great New South Wales Court of Appeal case from about 3 years ago where they basically, literally the first 3 paragraphs are, there was this trial in the High Court, the appellant lost, the appellant's a terrible person, clearly done many bad things over the years, but our job is to apply the rules, and if we apply the rules, he wins. And then they go through and reason it out. And I just think actually that's what the law should be about. And I also do that because I don't think it ever helps, and I don't think it ever takes anyone anywhere, to be honest.
Yeah. Well, that's fascinating. Thanks, Jeremy. Okay, we're going to move now into our final section of the conversation. We've got our quick fire. I've got 3 questions for you, the same questions that I ask everyone at the very end. What is something that you wish law school had better prepared you for?
I wish law school had better prepared you for the psychological aspect of this job. When you're dealing with people, you're dealing with people's psychologies. So having an understanding of where personality types are coming from, how best to communicate with them, those sorts of issues, I think that would be a very helpful part of any legal education.
Cool. Last one is, what is a single piece of advice that you would give a young Jeremy?
Usually it's don't, isn't it? Isn't it? Just don't.
Just don't?
Yeah, just don't. The single piece of advice I would give a young Jeremy is it's what a friend said to me years ago. He's an architect. He said, you want to always ask yourself, what does the outcome look like, and reverse engineer it from there.
Mm-hmm.
So, when you're throwing your party on Saturday night, Sam, you say to yourself, what looks like the end of a good night? And how do I get there? Who was in the room? Which room were we in? What were we drinking? What were we listening to? And so you break down the elements. And you reverse engineer the outcome you want. And I think sometimes in my career, I didn't think far enough ahead to say, actually, I want to be here in X number of years' time. What do I need to do to specifically get to that point?
Mm-hmm.
So that would be the piece of advice that I would give.
Jeremy, thank you so much. This has been a wonderful conversation. Thank you so much for joining us. I suppose that is all we do have time for this episode of the What a Lawyer podcast. Thank you very much to our audience and our media team and our sponsors, and obviously a quick request to please give us a follow wherever you listen to or view this show, on Spotify, Apple or YouTube, to really help us spread the word and reach more curious minds. Thank you once again, Jeremy Johnson, for your time and your generosity, your experience, and sharing your story with us. It's been honestly amazing. And I'm sure this conversation will reach many lawyers that who knows what they'll take away from today, but I'm sure there's a lot in there for someone. Jeremy, it was really nice to reconnect with you again. Thank you so much. One more time. That was Jeremy Johnson.